I'm going to start off with this. Anybody recognize this? I'll give you a hint. It's right on top of the title there. Right? It's a U2 album. And does anybody know what that album is about? I'll give you another hint. It's pictured there. Norman, what is the album about? So when you sit in the front. I know your first name, though. Any? Things you can't leave behind, which is what? What are the things that you can't leave behind? Has anyone ever had a good experience that they could remember? Raise your hand if you do. I know everybody's hands work. We went through this, right? Has anyone had a bad experience that they could remember? Raise your hand. Audrey, how long ago was the bad memory that you remember? 9 years ago. Tina, good memory, how long ago was it? 25 years ago. Some experiences, when you have them, are life sentences. For better or for worse. And that's what that album really is about. If you listen to the music of U2 in this particular album, it's about baggage. Things you can't leave behind. The good, mostly bad. And so when we think about this in terms of court management, you know, what's the relationship, right? What's the relationship? Is court management hard? Or more broadly, let's put it more broad, very good, yes. Yes, a resounding yes. Is generally leading and managing people hard, like real difficult, hard work? What's that? Yes, indeed. That's right. Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I would agree. But it's only hard, in my opinion, if you're doing it right. If you're doing it right, it's hard. If you're doing it wrong, then you're just sitting in the leadership chair. And like I tell my sons, don't mistake the leadership chair for the leader. Because the person who ended up in the chair could have ended up in the chair by all sorts of circumstance. Who they know, where they grew up, the position of the moon. All sorts of reasons why people end up in the leadership chair. But the leader in the chair manages people, leads people. It's difficult work. It could be difficult if you take the easy way out and you're just occupying the space too. But the difference is, when you're doing it right, it's very difficult, hard work to manage people, but it's more rewarding. So when you're doing it wrong, it's still hard, but it's just not as rewarding. But why is it hard? Why is it hard? Why do you do it? I know it's not for the money. It's almost $5 a gallon of gasoline. So I know it's not for the money. But why is it hard? Why is court management, why is leading people such a difficult thing?
One single person. People on the recording can't hear. Do you want me to say that all over again?
Okay.
Yes.
I think courts are especially hard because of our government structure and, you know, the fact that we're what is called a loosely coupled organization, and sometimes there's not one person in charge, and it can be really hard for line staff sometimes to support them in that type of environment. And as a manager, it can be hard to navigate that as well.
Correct. So what else? Resistance to change. Who's resistant to change, though? It's hard because you're dealing with human beings, people, in the governance, in the structure. This is my fiefdom.
Yes.
This is my silo. I don't like you. Don't eat lunch with me. You're dealing with people. That's why it's hard. And as my mother used to say, sometimes people are funny in not a humorous way. When you're dealing with people. And when you take those people and you're trying to lead judges, staff, court executives, all sorts of different people, and you put them in the same environment as complex as a court system, whew, hard work. Only if you're doing it right there, though, right? So here are my session objectives. So in about a 60, 75 minute walk, we got a lot to accomplish. I promise you it's a long walk around the neighborhood. Bear with me. You get to the address, the home is gonna be comfortable, right? You're gonna, hopefully, you learn something, maybe you laugh a little bit, you get some exercise, right? Okay, so I'm gonna give you a brief overview of a court administration paradigm that I developed over many years, tweaked it a bit, tweaked it a little bit more. And so I'm gonna share with you a paradigm that I've consulted on, I've taught on, I've written about. I like it, you may not like it, but there's nothing I can do about it now. So I'll show you that. All right. I'm gonna give you a piece of the leadership piece of it, right, a slice of it. And I'm gonna share with you 3 true stories, more anecdotes more than stories, but 3 true stories that are mostly sad, but educational, right? I'm gonna link each story to a corresponding academic concept, right? So you have an excuse, real good professional excuse for being here. It's like, oh, I learned this stuff, it's academic, right? Okay, so I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna share, I'm gonna link those, and then I'm gonna connect all of that, right, to the concepts of one fundamental leadership principle I think is very, very important. It may, in fact, in my opinion, be the most important thing with respect to court leadership and leadership in general. And then I'm gonna link all of that because you have to do this first before you transcend and go into this area of strategic management. And then I'll give you kind of the explaining the value of this, what is it, why is it important? Really, frankly, who cares, right? Why should anybody care about managing strategically? And then I'll review the process of how line of sight is what we refer to it as aligning the performance goals with the strategic plan, okay? So I gave you a handout, actually, of a column that I wrote. So I'm a quarterly columnist for NACOM. It's called Management Music. So you'll see that column there every quarter when Court Manager is released. So I gave you a handout on a column that I wrote back in 2019. And I do a little bit of a deeper dive on some of the concepts and things that I'll be talking about with you this morning. So take a look. Is everybody a NACOM member? Or just, if you're not a NACOM member, you should be a NACOM member, right? It's a fantastic organization that I've been involved in for amazing myself for more than probably 25 years at this point. So you should be a member of NACOM and IACA, right? Those 2 organizations, you know. It's great networking, and apart from, well, I'm Italian, so I judge every experience by food and drinks and the company of stories that people tell. So for all those reasons, at the very least, it's fantastic, right? And then for these professional reasons. So take a look at that column. I gave it to you as a handout, and you can take a look at it. Okay, so first point. Here is this court administration paradigm. So I'm going to be focusing today on this top piece, the leadership, but not the whole thing, obviously, we don't have the time. I'm only going to be talking about a little sliver of it, and then that'll kind of segue into the strategic management and master planning. So this paradigm is at the center of a book that I previously authored. It's going to be the centerpiece of a new book that'll be out this calendar year at some point that I co-authored with these wonderful, great pioneers that they've allowed me to really kind of, you know, go on their coattails on this thing. Marcus Rankensmeyer and Alex Aikman, who wrote another book called, if you haven't read it, you should read it, and it should be on your bookshelf. It's called The Art and Practice of Court Administration. That was, I think, a 2007, 2008 book. So this is the centerpiece, and you'll see that we have these fundamentals that we refer to, and that's not the cover of the book. I just put that up there. It's still being designed. So it's got these 10 fundamentals that are permeable, right? So they all link to one another, and the foundation of that is what is the purposes and responsibilities of the courts. What you'll see is probably in most of the last segment that I added to the model is court culture. I think it's the most important part of any court organization is the court culture. It kind of envelops everything, right? So if I had a garden salad, the way I kind of describe it, the analogy I'll give you is like if I had a garden salad, right, and all the different entities, ingredients of that garden salad, tomatoes, ham if you eat it, turkey, right, cucumber, lettuce, onion, all that good stuff. The court culture, right, would be analogous to the dressing of that salad. It kind of envelops. You see that every aspect of the court. And sometimes, if the court culture is not good, the dressing has gone bad. And a good leader is going to rinse that salad, right? You can't say, well, this is how I found it. No, it's your responsibility as a court leader. Leading through strategic management is to, well, I don't like blue cheese dressing. I much prefer balsamic. This is better, right? So you're going to rinse it out and put that new dressing. Okay, so that's in a nutshell what the paradigm looks like. And like I said, we'll be focusing a little bit on leadership and strategic management. Okay, so first story. This is my wife's story. And it's called, I call it the Happy Thanksgiving story. Okay, so my wife is a speech pathologist, and she treats preschoolers, teaches them how to talk. And many of these preschoolers are autistic. So that's right, she's a superhero. That's right. Okay, so she does great work. She's been doing it a long time. So this is her story. It's called the Happy Thanksgiving. So every Thanksgiving, she'd have flashcards. And on these flashcards, what she'd have pictures of different things that symbolize Thanksgiving, okay? And she would start the articulation of this image to help the child along, okay? So we're gonna do it, just like she did. Turkey. You guys, everyone knows, right? Turkey. You don't have to raise your hand. Turkey. Turkey. Good. Native American. Good. Native American. Excellent. You're getting there. And better, too. Good. Cornucopia. That's a hard one. That is a hard one. Right? More advanced preschooler. Good. Good thing we got the judge here. Cornucopia. And what's that orange thing in the middle with the big stem coming out of it? Pumpkin. Good. All right, the last one.
Pilgrim.
Very, very good. Pilgrim. That's what I said too. I said pilgrim too. But when she had this little boy, we'll call him Tommy. Tommy saw this and he couldn't say, he said, and he couldn't say pilgrim. In fact, he didn't see a pilgrim. What he said was, oh, that's a pimp. So my wife, she's like, no, that's a pilgrim. That's a pilgrim, Tommy. No, that's a pimp. My uncle's a pimp. My uncle's a pimp. No, I don't think your uncle's a pimp. No, he's a pimp. That's no pilgrim. Sad story. So my wife came home, she was mortified, and she said, I don't know what I'm going to do with this flashcard. I said, you're not going to do anything with it. And she goes, I don't even know how, because he was a preschooler. I didn't know what a pimp was or saw a pimp, because she grew up in the Valley, right? I grew up in Jersey City. So, random immigrant son from Jersey City, we're going to run into pimps. And so for me, in fact, I remember one. He had an orange, he had all sorts of outfits. Kind of reminded me of the Harvey Keitel character, Taxi Driver. A little bit. Small like him, actually. Orange outfit, big heels. Kind of looked like this guy. So what I was telling my wife is, no, back That's okay. What he has is what we refer to, the academic concept number one, is what is called phantom community. Phantom community. So the phantom community is that we have lots and lots of folks that comprise society. But learning experiences is a much more intimate process that occurs really in smaller groups. And the smaller groups that this occurs in are two: your primary group and your secondary group. Your primary group are family, friends. Bono would say the primary group are the people who know your memories. Isn't that nice? Brilliant. Very poetic. Okay? So the people who know your memories comprise your primary group. Your other social experiences come from what sociologists would refer to as what's called secondary groups. The people in this room that you're acquainted with are part of your secondary group. If you go on vacation with them, they may be your primary group. But if you're chatting with them, you're working with them, you share hobbies with them, you go bowling with them, secondary group, okay? And through these two groups and the experiences that you have with these two groups is essentially where your social learning comes from, generally speaking. So George Herbert Mead came up with this fascinating concept to what's called the generalized other. He's one of the most notable, and here's the other thing. Primary group, there was a gentleman called Charles Cooley, sociologist, and he would refer to the primary group as springs of life. So the people in which basically bring you into existence, your social experience, your social processes. So Mead comes up with this concept to what's referred to as the generalized other. And he proposed that society is sustained through this communicative process. And that is the ability to take on the role of the other person. So you behave in social situations in a way that you think the other people, the generalized other, expects you to behave like. So you meet someone for the first time, you introduce yourself to that person for the first time. Ordinarily, what do? Shake hands. Unless you're in Italy, then we kiss each other on either side of the cheek. Generalized other. So you learn this through your primary and secondary group. So he came up with this wonderful, interesting concept of learning through this generalized other, and that's why people behave in the way that is ordinarily expected in those settings to behave like. Because you're already knowing in that social situation what that other person expects you to behave like. Good concept, except there's two problems with it. Does anybody know what the two problems are? Us in the courts, if you work in the criminal part, you should know this. Or you could, good guess. Anybody? Nobody's arms are working.
What's the question again?
So there's two shortcomings to the generalized other. Two problems. Personal opinion goes with the permanence of self. We'll talk about that in the phantom community. Social media. Social media plays into it. Well, I'll talk to you about social media in a minute. Go ahead. Very close. So there's, yes, close. So there's two shortcomings with Mead's. It doesn't explain the conformist from the nonconformist. So if everybody's following the generalized other, then why do we have criminals? It's a gap. The second problem is what's referred to as the permanence of the self. In other words, if I take the kid out of Albuquerque, I can't take the Albuquerque out of the kid. So the generalized other in Albuquerque does not translate to the generalized other to another social setting. Shortcoming 2. So if I could take Many years ago, when I was the TCA in Union Vicinage in New Jersey, I went to Omaha, Nebraska, and I went there to go take a look to see if a location. It's called Boys Town. So I went to Omaha, Nebraska to see if this was a particular setting we could send really our worst juvenile delinquents. If we could take them and uproot them and put them in a completely better setting to help them along their way. But I knew about these concepts way back then. I said, that's not really going to matter. You kind of have to break down their social image, their self, essentially. That has to go through a really sort of an incredible metamorphosis in order for you to get there. So Lonnie Athens comes up with this concept that's referred to as phantom community, which is really brilliant. And he referred to it as the audience of real or imaginary people whose conception of communal life, especially our and other people's place in it, we always hold close to our hearts and usually take for granted. How many people talk to themselves? Raise your hand. If you're not raising your hand, you're being dishonest. In fact, I talk to myself so much, I'm going to raise both my hands. Okay? When you're talking to yourself, that voice in your head is not Mead's generalized other. It's Athens's phantom community. So Tommy had a different phantom community than mine, than yours, than Miss Maria, who's my wife. So the phantom community are those impactful, significant social experiences in your life that impact you and you carry across your entire life. So that's why if you take somebody, their personality, those voices in their head, if they go from Jersey City to Albuquerque, those voices don't get left in Jersey City. They follow him and her to Albuquerque. Very good, Judge. You're ahead of us. No, that's okay. That's good. Well done. Baggage. Good baggage, bad baggage. Phantom community. And that explains to you about what's the difference between the conformist and the nonconformist. So when you're in the criminal court, and sometimes my staff would say, man, that guy is crazy. No, he's not. That's a value judgment. He's not crazy. He's just got a different phantom community. That his phantom community says, if you look at him wrong on the bus, he could stab you. That's a sign of disrespect. I was on the bus once that these guys didn't know each other. They were looking at each other, and they made the bus driver pull the bus over, and they started almost killing each other on the sidewalk. They didn't know each other. They had no history. They just looked at each other and felt like their manhood was being tested somehow. I don't know. I'm too much of a coward. I would say you could have it. Right? I'm one of the guys who's running out of the building, not running in it when it's on fire. So anyway, so the phantom community basically gives you the difference between that conformist and nonconformist. So they're not crazy. They're just got different voices in their head using behavior in social settings, whatever social setting, is the yardstick. And that's how their discipline is. That's how what's happening inside their head. And that's why people could see the same exact thing and see completely two different things. It's their phantom community. Okay? Second story. Another sad story. This one is not my story either. This is my father's story. A piece of a horse, please, and hold the dirt. Okay. So my father immigrated to the United States as a relatively young man, early 30s, but he was very poor. He grew up in the southern part of Italy, and dirt floors, no indoor plumbing. Early 1950s, essentially at the time of this story. Okay, so and they didn't really have a lot to eat. I'll be honest with you. So a lot of malnutrition. So sometimes when you see the short Italian man who's the mason, it's not that he didn't have good genes, it's just the malnutrition, so he didn't get to grow too tall, right? So that's my father. Anyway, so his story about this horse. So there was a gentleman who owned a farm in this village where my father lived, And he had a horse. He had a couple horses. So if you had a couple of horses and any kind of land on this farm, you were really kind of rich, right? Really wealthy in this village. And so this man had money, relatively speaking. And so he had this horse that got injured, right? He got injured, severely injured. So does anybody know? I don't know much about horses, I'll be honest with you. But do you know what they do to horses when they get severely injured? Does anybody know? Yeah, they euthanize them. But they don't bring it, back then, they didn't bring them to the vet, right? And kind of inject them with anything. They basically put a bullet in its head, right? So my father knew, and his friend knew, that this gentleman, this farmer, was going to kill the horse because it was severely injured. So my father went there and asked him if he could have the horse. Why did my father want the horse? For the meat. And this guy knew that he wasn't going to try to nurse the horse back to health. He was a 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid, maybe even younger. So the man said no, and he yelled at him. He said, if you ever come back here again, I'll shoot the horse and you. So my father, hungry, waited with his friend. And so what this farmer did is he took the horse with one of his farmhands, and he brought it down into the valley of this village. That's actually a picture of his village. So, true story. So he brings this horse down into the valley, and he shoots the horse. And he digs a shallow grave of this horse, and he buries the horse into the shallow grave down at the valley. What the farmer and the farmhand didn't know is that my father and his friend were following him and watching him and waiting. So they knew essentially where in the valley is giant. Sarmento Valley is huge. So he could kind of see where he's going to bury this horse. And he waited. And then my father and his friend went back at night. And they dug that horse up. And they chopped that horse up. They dug it up and they chopped it up in pieces. Did you ever see that scene in the film of Donnie Brasco when they're chopping up those old mob guys and they're sawing them? So every time I see that scene, it reminds me of this story. Well, it's not a human being. So they put this horse in a wheelbarrow and they brought it up to the village and they salted it. You know why they salted it? Preserve it. Actually, the term salary actually comes from the word salt because they used to pay you in money and salt because salt was used as a preservative. So they used salt to preserve the horse, and they ate the horse. They cleaned the horse up. They got someone to skin it, and they lived on that horse for a long time. And when my father told me that story, I said, that's a terrible story. That's a disgusting story. Horrendous story. He's like, but those were the times, right? Those were the times. So it ends well. So it's a sad story, but it ends well because, my father in 2018, when I became an ICM fellow, he was there in the United States Supreme Court, sitting right next to Chief Justice John Roberts, eating like hors d'oeuvres and drinking wine with. It's seared in my memory. It's a wonderful country. It's not a perfect country, but it's a fantastic country, right? It's not supposed to be perfect anyway, guys. That's why they said a more perfect union. They knew what they were saying when they said more perfect. They didn't say perfect. We said social media. Somebody says Facebook. That's the only place where it's perfect, right? Everything's perfect on Facebook. Okay, so concept 2, what psychologists, so we're moving from sociology to psychology here, what refers to what's called cognitive residue. Hai lasciato quelle posto che e quelle persone, ma quelle poste e quelle persone non hanno lasciato me. So what that translates in means I left those places and those people, but those people and those places never left me. So when you have significant social experience, baggage, judge, or trauma, very good. Good and bad and everything in between, those experiences are life sentences. So when my father came to this country and he made something of himself together with my mother, mostly my mother, we give her credit for everything, my best friend. When you have those kind of experiences, my friends, they don't go. You don't let go of those experiences. Those experiences stick to you. They stick to you. So when he's in the hardware, when he's at Home Depot, and he doesn't need to worry about the saw that he's trying to buy that costs $22 and the other one that costs $27, and he's stuck there, and I'm waiting for him for 15, 20 minutes for him to make up his mind if the $5 on the other saw is better than the other, and I'm getting more and more frustrated, and my patience is wearing thin. It doesn't matter. We've wasted more than $5 of time at this point. I know he's got what's called cognitive residue. So every mischief, I don't know, in Jersey City, this used to happen. Do they, in Albuquerque, maybe not. On mischief night, which is October 30th, do they throw eggs at one another? They still do that? They do it in Detroit. Right. So they don't do it here. But in Jersey City, they were notorious for doing it. They throw it at the buses, at the people. And every mischief night, I used to dread, because my father would lose his blessed mind when he used to see people throwing good eggs at one another. And he said, I don't know, you know what I would have did in my life if I had an egg? You know what I would have done for one egg? And these fools have thrown them at one another, right? Or when older cousins would come to my house and they'd open up the refrigerator and they'd look at me and they said, somebody better tell your mother and father that the war is over, because they never used to throw food away. Leftovers went in the fridge, and you eat it for lunch the next day. That's a given. In fact, if the bread had a little mold on it, they wouldn't even throw that out. They'd go feed the pigeons with the birds. Somebody's going to make do, right, of this bread. It's called cognitive residue. Those past experiences stick to you, my friends. And it's not exclusive to my mom and dad, to me, to you. It's for your staff, too. They have a phantom community. They've got cognitive residue. And so after you're dealing with a stressful situation that affects you, you have a conflict at work. Does that conflict at work go away when you get home? Heck no. Heck no. You have residue. That's an experience. So it's going to impact the rest of your day. It's going to impact your thinking. It's going to impact your judgment. It's going to impact your perception. It's going to impact potentially even your performance. You're going to have anxiety. You're going to be frustrated. You may carry it on to the next day. You're not immune from these things. Court management, leading people, managing people is hard because of all these reasons. You're dealing with people, real things. It's not math. It's not 2 + 2 = 4. It's social experience. And you can't control for those things. So while most people are going to devalue, right, they're going to devalue rewards for immediate gratification, the people who have physical hard labor, right, they have the opposite relationship with money, right? They look at something and they start thinking of how many hours it took to buy this thing. So when my father's doing the calculation in his head about the 22 or the $27 saw at Home Depot, he's calculating how long it takes him to make that extra $5, even though it doesn't matter at this point. It doesn't matter. And so your staff, your judges, your personnel are going through the same processes, right? They have experiences that they're carrying with them, baggage. Okay, the last one is called the tale of the two car salesmen. This is not so much a sad one. Also true, doesn't belong to my wife or my father. This one kind of belongs to me, right? Okay. So let's say you're walking into a car dealership, right? Has anyone ever bought a car? Raise your hand. Everyone's still alive. Good, 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 good. So let's say you go and you're gonna go and buy a car, and you walk into this dealership, and the gentleman, the car salesman or the car saleswoman says to you, how are you? What brings you in today? Are you thinking about purchasing today? What's your timeline? I like the color of your hair, whatever, right? You exchange some pleasantries, and then after that, this salesperson, right, is very anxious, wants to sell you this car. They want to sell you that car because it means They're going to make money from the commission, obviously. But in the process of trying to sell you the car, if the car salesperson says to you, listen, I really need you to buy this car. This is really why. Well, my mother-in-law moved in with us. I have a lot more expenses with my mother-in-law now. And my kids need braces. And I have twins. That's a true story, too. I do have twins. And they need braces. It's a lot of money for those braces, and my insurance is not going to cover it. It's $6,000 a pop. So that's $12,000 I have to come up with. But if I sell you this car, and let me show you my spreadsheet. If I sell you this car, that means instead of selling 9 cars this month, I'll have sold 10, and I get a special bonus. And I could cut that orthodontics bill probably at least in half. So I really need you to buy this car for me. For me or from me? Are you sold? How many of you hearing that dramatic mother-in-law, braces, orthodontics, twins story are going to buy that car? But just based on the story? Anybody? Raise your hand. So if you're not convinced, raise your hand. Okay, good. I'm not either. He may empathize with you, right? He may say, do you like your mother-in-law? And I'll say, yes, I do, right? Philomena is her name. I love Philomena. Also true story, right? He goes, oh, well, that's good. And he says, I hate my mother-in-law. So you got that. Right? Okay. So let's talk about the guy that I bought a car from. And we'll call him Joe, because that's his real name. Right? And so I go in to see Joe, and Joe does the same exact thing. He exchanges pleasantries, and he gets to know me. Where do you work? What do you do? What do you like to eat? You going anywhere this year? Where'd you go last year? How many kids do you have? What's your wife's name? What does she do? Are those your kids? Is that your wife? How long you been? How did you find us? Right? Starts asking me lots and lots of questions. Personal, digging in questions. And then he proceeds to say, well, how long is your commute? It's this. It's like, well, that's a pretty long commute. You're going to love this car. You don't want that car. You don't want that. That car is more expensive. You want a cheaper model. Let me show you the cheaper model. It's better than this one based on your commute. And in fact, I want you to sit in this car. When you sit in this car, you're going to wish your commute was longer. You're going to love this car. You are going to love it. So I sit in the car. He says, oh, this is good. He's like, and you got hair still. You put the top down on this thing. And you're going to love it. He goes, what about that other car? He goes, let's go back to that other car that's even more expensive. So now he's saying he doesn't want to sell me the more expensive car. So let's go sit in that other one. And he convinces me the more expensive car is not as comfortable as this other one. He's like, now you sit in that car. Now we're going to go even to a cheaper one. Go to the cheaper one. You see, they kind of doesn't feel the same, right? He goes, and wait till you see. He goes, what road do you take to work? Oh, I take this road. He goes, oh, there's a lot of turns. Getting there, coming back. We got to go for a ride. You got to see how this car takes those turns. Rain, snow. Giuseppe, you're going to love it. You're going to want it to rain and snow more. All right. I bought the car. True story. Not only did I buy the car, I sent 2 more people to him specifically to go buy more cars. So, you know what he was doing? He was doing the same exact thing that my cousin, who graduated from West Point, and a good friend of mine, who's also a graduate of West Point, do. But Joe, my car dealer, car salesman, he didn't go to West Point, right? He didn't go to West Point, but he was doing something they teach at West Point. And what they teach, also my brother-in-law does it, he's very good too. He's an engineer by trade. And where'd he go? Lehigh, good school. Made the NCAA. It's good. No one watches the bracket either. This is my goodness. Come on, sports fans. You do a little movies, books, sports. Mix that with good food and wine, and that's life right there. All right, so he does what's referred to as the U perspective, called the U perspective. And this was developed by a good friend of mine, Lee Miller, and another good friend of mine, by Barbara Jackson. And they came up with this idea that the U perspective is selling. You're always selling. So here's what people don't do, though. Most people try to convince you, managers, judges, they try to convince other people to do it by seeing their viewpoint. Everybody is doing it, but it ain't about you. You know what's about you? You know when you guys don't get it? Let me show you. Like this. Selfie. Sebastian Maniscalco calls those lonelies, not selfies. He calls those lonelies, right? Social media, right? It ain't about you. Social media is about you. That's why it's so successful, right? Because most people are self-involved. They're self-involved, right? My mother used to say, don't tell people your problems. Half of them don't care, and the other half are glad you have them. That's not true. That's very cynical. So you tell me your problem, son. Yes, Mom. So the U perspective encourages leaders, court managers, to start with the other person's perspective first, right? The U, and you build agreements from there. Why is court management hard? Why is managing and leading hard? Because you can't be lazy. You got to get up. If I want, where's Janet? Janet's here. There's Janet. If I want to see Janet's perspective, right? I can't see Janet's perspective by sitting comfy and cozy in my leadership chair. I got to get up from my leadership chair, and I got to use energy and go sit where Janet is sitting, right next to Janet. And now I can see Mark too. Mark sees it. The way Janet and Mark see it is the way I could see it now. But if I want to do the easy thing and lead easy, not difficult, and if I just want to sit and collect a check, right? And it's just someplace to be between the weekends so I can make money and buy more things that I probably don't need, that's not leading, folks. You're just sitting in the leader's chair. That's what you're doing. You're not leading. Leading requires you to get in. You got to dig. You got to figure out the person's phantom community. You got to figure out if they have any of that residue. You've got to create circumstance so you could see their perspective. So the U perspective is the approach where you influence. And I don't care if you're selling cars or if you're managing, Essex County, New Jersey with $120 million budget and 60 judges and 1,200 employees. It doesn't matter. It's the same deal. You're influencing and negotiating. You're selling. And in order to sell, in order to lead, you've got to have this third academic concept intact. It's called the U perspective. So instead of pushing your position first, this particular method by Jackson and Miller, what they're telling you is to emphasize aligning your goals, the interests of the court first, so that cooperation with that other person is mutually beneficial. You've got to move your position. You have to see their perspective. They're only going to be motivated if you understand what motivates them. If you don't know what motivates them, then that's just you, and it ain't about you. That chair is going to be here after you're gone, right? You don't have custody over that chair. Somebody lied to you if you think that, right? It's temporary. That is just temporary. They decide to put you there. See what kind of job you're going to do. And sometimes even when you do a fantastic job, you don't get to sit in it, right? Okay, so those are my 3 stories. Those are my 3 academic concepts. Hopefully you learned a little something. Oh, here's the other piece, right? Which is good by Nas Nin, who says, we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. It's my perception. But if I need to know my people, and if as a leader you should, if you're changing that culture, you should, you've got to move yourself. You've got to move yourself even at your own peril. That's what leading is about. So, how does this all tie in? Leadership principle. Know thy team. Know thy team. So the Phantom community recognizes that past experiences shape staff behaviors and interactions, even if unspoken and hidden. That's why it's a Phantom community. 2, cognitive residue. You understand that lingering mental impressions from past cases, conflicts, decisions, influence, present judgments, and your team's dynamics. 3rd, the you perspective. You lead first and foremost by understanding the priorities and the perspectives of your judges, your staff, your team, your stakeholders in order to create alignment and cooperation in your court. You can't do it otherwise because people ultimately are self-interested. That's why Facebook works. They're self-interested. What's in it for me? They're not interested in what you ate for dinner yesterday. They're interested in what you ate for dinner yesterday relative to what they ate for dinner yesterday. You follow me? So you've got to lead from their perspective first. So the leadership insight here is effective court management requires an absolute necessity. The emphasis here is on acknowledging historical and psychological influencing while simultaneously, strategically engaging others' interests to achieve your organization goals. That's it. So here's the other piece. So now you're going to say, well, that's all fine and good, but even with the stories, it sounds very academic. Giuseppe, what else do you got? This is what I have. And this is what you can walk away with. Practical application. You want to be a good leader? Make sure you know the answers to these 5 questions. How does your employee like to be recognized? When I was the ATCA in Essex County, we had a newsletter, and they used to call it the Essex Award. And they used to print in this newsletter, we used to give out an award. It was like literally, it was like a $5 frame, plexiglass cover, person's name on a certificate, and then we put their name in our newsletter, that quarterly newsletter. And I had one of my staff talk about a social experience that kind of sticks to you. I had this staff person who came in and requested that I make, she wanted 10 or a dozen copies of these things. And I said, well, Sarah, I said, okay, I'll make, she goes, yeah, but can you make them in color for me? I said, yeah, we have a color copy. I'll make them for color copier. So I had the secretary make, and I said, what are you going to do with a dozen of these things? He goes, Giuseppe, I have my family barbecue this weekend, and I'm going to share it with my family from North Carolina and South Carolina. I don't see them. You know, I got my grandmother coming from Georgia. You know what occurred to me? That award was very important to her. She loved it, right? Me, if you bring me out for some pizza, I'm going to be happy. You can keep the frame. Give me some pizza, right? But she liked that award. How does the employee like to be recognized? You should know this answer, folks. If you don't know the answer, that's how you practically apply what I'm telling you today. 2, what motivates the employee? You don't know somebody unless you know what motivates them. I'm sorry, right? I influence my sons. I try to convince my wife, fail most of the time, right? But I know what motivates them, right? I know what drives this person. If you don't know what motivates the employee, right? Why are they getting up to come to this place? The answer should not be someplace to go between the weekends. That's not the right answer. you're in the wrong job, right? Intrinsically, what motivates this person? What gives them the boost? What triggers that, that part of their brain that motivates them to show up, get up, and move? What does the employee like doing when they are at work? What drives their productivity? Do they like doing X more than Y? Build on their strengths. Don't try to build on the weaknesses. People are social creatures. They don't want to do what they don't want to do. When I was running jury management, I knew the introverts from the extroverts. I wasn't taking my introverts and putting them at the front desk where they were answering the same question 76 times every day. That is not going to work, right? Those are going to be my finance people. You stay back there. Dude. Right? And they're happy doing it. They're happy doing it. That's all right. 4, what does the employee, and this I know, this is tricky, right? What do they enjoy doing outside of work, right? What hobbies do they have? What pastimes do they have, right? You talk to me about sports and movies, any book written by Cormac McCarthy, you're going to get my attention, right? What major responsibilities do they have outside of work? Do I have a single mom with 2 kids? Do I have a single dad with 2 kids? Do I have somebody who's got health issues going on with their family, right? If they don't feel comfortable with you, they're not going to open up. But that impacts their work. That's baggage, folks. Where did they grow up? What kind of negative experiences did they have with the person before who was sitting in that chair? That impacts them, right? Here's the other thing. When you know what they're doing outside of work, you'll also know what motivates them. So if I give somebody, hey, listen, do all this kind of extra responsibility and work for me, and we'll promote you so we can give you a little bit more money, but a lot more responsibility, that's not going to motivate somebody who is not motivated with that, right? They may be motivated, give me a little flex time so I can go pick up my kid, right? Or, I'm motivated by these awards so I could show my family and friends that I'm thriving in this new environment of the courts, right? Show me how my purpose is linked. The purposes and responsibilities of the court. Show me, no matter where I am in the system, governance, somebody said governance, right? Show me in this whole complex system of governance where it fits in. Where do I fit in here? Drive me to that point. Last question. How does this employee like to receive feedback? What is their preference? What type of communication, what type of feedback, what preferential feedback, I should say, works best for the employee? How do you foster their continued growth in the court? You do that, right, by knowing your employee. Know thy team. Okay, so when you know thy team, that means you familiarize yourself, not with your story. It ain't about you. It ain't about you. If it's going to be about you, then don't be the leader. You've got to know their story. And they're all coming to work. You know that sign? You got to leave your baggage at the door. Someone misinformed you or lied to you. That's not happening. That is not happening. Even if they're pretending like they're leaving the baggage at the door. They're human beings. It's impossible. That's not how you that's how you manage in a classroom. Like when they're teaching management and leadership in the classroom, they talk about that. But in reality, in the real world, that's not what's happening. They're bringing all of that phantom community, that cognitive residue, trying to convince them through you perspective by understanding that this guy's been around. You see all the stickers he's got on? He's been all over the place, right? He's in that airport with you too, carrying a lot of luggage. A lot of luggage. You have to incentivize them. You can't penalize somebody. If they're I've had employees come to my office and I could tell something's off. It's in my stomach. I could feel it. I don't ignore that feeling, right? So my sister's a dermatologist, right? Trained in medicine. She'll say, if you don't know anything else, go with your instinct. Because that's the animal, right, side of you saying, there's something wrong here. So go with your instinct. If I knew something was going on with my staff, I felt it somehow. I don't ignore that. I would bring them in. Hard work. Lots of time. It's hard work. But if I'm taking the time to do it, ultimately, it's more rewarding. You know, and management principle, too, is this is the reason why you said you can't manage more than 7 to 9 people. You can't. Not realistically, you can't. Because you're doing all this. If you're doing it right, managing 7 to 9 direct reports requires you to do all this. So if you're doing 15, 20, how are you doing all this? You're not doing that. You don't have the time, unless you invented more time. We'll see what Elon Musk comes up with. You have to ask them lots of questions. That's what the West Point teaches you. You're in a social setting, they're not directing the conversation toward them. They're constantly asking you, pay attention, they're asking questions about you. And the other thing is, they have good retention. So they walk away remembering bits and pieces about your life. And the next social interaction, they bring it up again. It's like, oh, this guy remembers me. I'm important enough that they remembered this piece of me. How's that coaching with the Pee Wee football team going? Did they win? Did they lose? That has nothing to do with the courts. Yes, it does. Because you can't do strategic management without people. And if you don't know your people, you're not getting past go. And in order to know your people, you've got to do the hard work. There's no easy way out, right? And then you have to reassure them. So don't say, well, you can't come here with your baggage. No, you have to come here with your baggage. But reassure them that you're going to be accepting of this, right? I've had staff, you'd feel it, you bring them into your office. I can't tell you how many times they come in there and they start crying because something happened. Something happened. And I'll be honest with you, I was in the courts. I was a public administrator 20 plus years. I'm a full-time academic now. You know, it's much easier being an academic because I'm not managing anybody. People ask me all the time, I'm not managing anyone, right? That's the big difference. That's the reality of it. I'm managing my students, but there's a beginning, middle, and end. It's like a semester. It's like, okay, you know, that's that, right? But I take the same approach with my students though, right? I'm not some dictator totalitarian over there, right? I'm talking to them like real human beings with their own issues, right? If I feel there's something wrong, I sit and chat with them. I talk to them just like I would talk to the staff. I take the time to do it, right? At a private university like Monmouth, you could afford such a thing like this too, which helps, you know? Anyway, so you familiarize yourself with their story ultimately, okay? When you're doing all this, you got to do all this first. Do that hard work first. And then you can move to what's strategic management. So what is this stuff, right? This is where the Marcus and I would talk about this, like where the tire kind of hits the road, right? You're envisioning the possibilities. You're talking about the process of learning. You're doing the teamwork. You're doing the problem solving. You're visually creating that future for yourself. You move from the abstract now to the concrete. You cannot move from the abstract to the concrete without the involvement of people. People are the powerhouse of the courts, your people. So it falls here right below leadership, strategic management, and master planning. Why is it important? Well, number one, it gives a voice to the court. It gives a voice. And it shows the public we know what we're doing. We know what we're doing. We have a plan. We're not just about doing activity here. We actually have a framework and we have a plan, and we should be, and we are independent if for no other reason because of this. Most importantly, it enables you, it gives you versatility. It makes you nimble. You could change when you have a strategic management plan. And if you adapt and you train and you see things from that person's perspective, you can more easily navigate that change. If you don't like change, it's like when you you go into a room and says, who likes change? Everybody raises their hand. Who wants to change? And all the hands go down. You'll like change if I could show you how that benefit of that change is, but I've got to know my people. And that's how it feeds into street. You see, we created, there's dotted lines here for a reason, because it's permeable. One fundamental kind of is enveloped with the other. Okay, and all on the basis of, why do we exist? Why are we doing what we're doing, right? Ernie Friesen's 8 purposes. And ultimately, we improve the public's trust and confidence by showing them this plan and talking to them about it and making it transparent and, most importantly, taking accountability. Now, here's the other piece of it. You've got to be careful because once you publish it, which is fine by me, but once you publish it, and you should, and promulgate it, people are going to start holding you accountable to that plan. And they should. And you should invite it, because that's what leaders do. They take responsibility of those things, right? Okay, so who cares? Who cares about any of this, right? You could care because it will connect, and it will enable you to overcome some of the customary kind of disconnect that you're going to find in strategy, in the operations, in the plan. And it provides you a talking point. It shows you that, okay, I'm not just talking the talk, I'm actually walking it, right? I'm actually doing what I'm saying I'm going to do. In a year, we're going to do this. 3 years, we're going to do this. In 5 years, we're going to be here. And if I didn't get there, okay, it's on me. What do we need to do, right? So did I hit or miss the goal, and to what extent did I hit or miss it? I don't have to be perfect, right? But I have to have something in place, right? Or else I'm sacrificing the very important for what's the most urgent. You're going to be putting out fires. It aligns activities with results. It creates what I mentioned to you earlier as what's called line of sight. So everybody, internal stakeholders in particular, are going to understand how they, right? Judges, everybody involved is going to, where did they fit? How does the work that I'm doing here fit into the puzzle of all of this? So there's 3 questions that you ask essentially in this. Okay, folks, my team, where are we right now? What's the status? What are we doing right now? Where do we want to go? Right? Yogi Berra used to say, if you don't know where you're going, you're going to end up you don't want to be, or something like that. And then how do we get there? What are the priority actions? What do we physically, mentally, emotionally, what do we all have to do to get us from where we are today to where we want to be in a year, 3 year, 5 year? So when I was a trial court administrator in Union Vicinage, I gave my judge a 100-day plan and a 365-day plan, because that's how I was trained. I was trained that way in Essex, and I carried that over, cognitive residue. I carried that over, and I saw how it worked, and I put it in writing, right? And I was careful. Here's the other piece. If you want to cheat a little bit, I'll give you a cheat, right? Under promise, over deliver. He says, we're going to reduce backlog you want to reduce it by 20%. You say, 6%, 6%, right? So then when you make 8%, you're a superhero. They're going to give you a cape and one of those nice frames. Me? Pizza, right? So this is the way it looks, folks. I'm a visual person. So this is how it looks. So where are we presently? Finding the mission goals. How does Tom, Sari, Dick, Harry, Larry, everybody, what do they specifically do? And how does what they do fit into the mission and goals, right? When I was running grand jury, you know what I used to do? So I had 22 staff there, right? What I used to do is I used to assign everybody a color. Construction paper color, purple, green. So it's okay, Sam, you're green, Lucy, you're purple, right? So I said every single and I used to put them in the file, because it was very disconnected. It looked like an assembly line. So when I first got there, they didn't know what happened before them, and they didn't know what happened to the file after them. So what I would do is, okay, I got this. You're going to be assigned a color. So when someone else in the system sees the color, they'd go to the color chart and they'd call Sue, who's assigned purple. Hey, Sue, come over. Let me show you what I'm doing. Then we go to the next part. And the next person would call Sue. Hey, Sue, come over. I got the file that's got your color on it. And Sue would sit with that person and see what they were doing. So now Sue sees what happens at the very beginning and all the way through no bill. So she saw how she fit in this. She feels more invested now in the process. You're not just pushing paper here. This is important stuff. In fact, it's the most important thing that we do, honestly. And I'm not just saying that because I'm very biased. It is the cornerstone of democracy. It is, right? That's why they built courts and churches first, right? In any civilization, because those are the two most important things. Or what the two most important things that they thought they should be doing. So you formulate, you create a strategy, execution, and then lots of times what happens is people stop here. They get to where they are, and you know what they don't do? They don't evaluate, which is the irony of it all. It's actually the most important thing that's done last. They don't evaluate. This is that's why it's important, because they're scared. They're scared that they failed. So then what happens is the thing is destined to succeed. That's no good, right? It may be a colossal waste of time and money and a terrible, abject failure. You should evaluate it to make sure that it's not that thing. So you reassess and you start again and you keep going. It goes on forever, right? Like the sun, just goes, right? You don't stop and you keep going until somebody else is in the chair. And you hand the baton over to the next person, and hopefully they take it to the next plane, and the person after them takes it to the next plane. That's called improvement. That's how we get better. Not perfect. You're never going to be perfect. But that's how you get more perfect. Okay, so we come all the way, making out okay. So we come all the way to the end, and it's about baggage. That's how I started. It's about baggage. Your baggage, their baggage, everybody's baggage. Everybody's bleeding out. I know it sounds cynical, but it's true. Everybody's bleeding out. But we're in the courts, so the very least we can do while we're all bleeding out, right, is to help one another. That's the point of it. I really believe that. It's to help one another. And you help your staff by supporting them, respecting them, and helping them. And when you're helping them, you're helping yourself, you're helping the courts, and you're helping us. And that's why we've been around for 250 years and counting. All right? Listen, I want to thank all of you for the 75 minutes that you allowed me to hold your attention. I'll take any questions you have. Marcus is not here to take them, so I'm going to take all of them. But you could email him. That's his phone number. You call him. Say, Marcus. Good people, Marcus. Anyway, that's mine. You can reach me at Monmouth University. I didn't put Monmouth University because they got a funny kind of firewall system there, so I like to talk to everybody. So I give you my iCloud, and that's my real mobile number. So you can call me on that too. I'll take any questions. We got a couple minutes left if anybody has any questions. Yes.
Here, please wait for the microphone because we have folks who are attending virtually.
Oh.
So
You're live at the Oscars.
it's the world we live in, right?
My question is more so, how do you deal with, say, management or other staff members that want you to leave your baggage at the door before you come in and don't want you to fake it until you make it type of a thing?
They want you to do that? It's a toxic place. Well, you gotta wait them out. So here's the other piece: is if the manager reporting directly to me? If they're reporting directly to me, you know where I'm going? I'll tell you what I'm doing. You see this piece here? I'm changing the culture. You know, I had a judge that used to say to me, "Hey, you know, I'm taking the blue cheese dressing off and I'm putting the balsamic on." But she used to say, "I don't like to take the slow boat anywhere." So she used to say to me, "Hey, this is not a rowboat. It's a cruise ship. Hard work. Takes time to steer it in a different direction. You got to take your time." Court culture is that. So I'm changing the culture, little by little, bit by bit, and I'm showing through example. And I'm talking to everybody. So I was fortunate when I was in Essex County, which was I might as well have been on the other side of the moon, even though they were sister counties. So Essex County was managed completely different than the Union, a different experience entirely. So in Essex, my training, my upbringing there was that If a staff person had a problem with their manager, they didn't need to go to their manager. They could come to the TCA. Open door policy, true and tried, always. Part of culture.
I can't go any higher.
You can't go any?
Any higher in management.
Oh, okay.
To skip over my manager, I can't go any higher.
Oh, so talk to me.
And actually, that's very common. That's very common, like with the clerks, district clerks, county clerks, they get in trouble if they go from, if they bypass their two-level supervisor. So it is a court culture for sure.
That's not good culture. You want to ask me what do they call this? The young people know hashtag truth, right? I'm going to give you some hashtag truth. If it's not an open environment where people are not free to speak, that's not a good environment. Because that means I'm seeing things through rose-colored glasses. If I'm not good, I want someone to tell me I'm not good. I'm not but I come off from a basis as, I don't pretend to think that I'm perfect. I'm not even trying to be perfect, to be honest with you. So someone who's telling me you're not perfect is fine by me. So that's an open communication kind of issue, Good question. Lots of challenges. I'll give you more stories. Talk to me in terms of how I specifically did what I did. Other questions?
I think we're time for lunch, but thank you for acknowledging.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Yes.